The song European Heart was actually inspired by this very radio show. In the third episode, Ben played a jingle where he said about the show, it's got a European heart, in his rather overwrought DJ voice that he sometimes uses. And I thought, hey, that's a great title for a song. Initially, it was going to be a sort of slower piece, like, sometimes I wish we could be on the same side, but I've got a European heart. We could stand together side by side with my European heart. So anyway, about 6 months later, Ben and I finally got together for working on some recording projects, and I decided to amp it up and go for a 1965 Hollies sound, which I will always do given the chance. I'd envisage it as being something like a campaign song, for instance, if there was a referendum as to whether we were going to stay in the EU or not.
Sometimes I wish there was no great divide on a European heart. We could stand together on the same side on a European heart. Do you know where you're going to? Have you been told a pack of lies?
The Dream is Dying was actually inspired by a quotation from Alexander de Pfeiffer Boris Johnson, just after he resigned, when he toasted the Chequers Agreement and then decided actually wasn't that great after all. And the words, the dream is dying and Brexit was killed by our, whatever he said it was, our insecurity. It actually put me in mind of John Lennon's and the song The Dream Is Over, or God, I think it's called, from his first solo album. And so we went for a very John Lennon type, maybe Julian Lennon also type ballad, with that very dreamy, sad, reflective effect. And I think Ben pulled out all the stops on the production, and I think it really works well. But it's very ironic that it was actually inspired by a quote by Bojo himself. The dream is dying. It's time to let it go. It'll only cause us too much pain to pursue it anymore. I dreamed I was a buccaneer sailing on the seven seas. Brexit Time was a very early poem. It might very well have been the first thing I submitted to SMR Rising. And what I like about it is I actually do see the appeal of the dream of the 1950s that many leavers bought into. I very much like it myself. Steam engines and trolley buses and, 6.5 Special. And I grew up very much in that world, although I was a bit too young to appreciate it. I wish I'd been born a little earlier, in fact. So I get it, but just because I've got nostalgia for the 50s doesn't mean these aren't great days too, and we shouldn't look forward. I can keep my old-fashioned British identity while at the same time wearing a very modern EU identity as a European citizen. In fact, what the leavers don't get, I think, is you can have as many identities as you like, really.
Brexit time, we're feeling fine. A happy land swathed in sunshine. It's always summer 1959. We've never had it quite this good. A quaint cottage, a shady wood, a pleasant village, a languid mood. Deep within the Anglosphere, no foreign tongues for our tea here. I want to make that crystal clear. Except for that old Spanish onion seller with his beret. He cycles round every other Tuesday afternoon. That's so.
EU Referendum Blues was the very first song. It was actually written during the campaign, when I actually used to listen to the Today programme, which I've long ceased to do. And it was meant to be fairly even-sided, as I did played it a couple of times at open mics and things. and I'm always a bit hesitant to play a lot of my pro-EU songs at that kind of event. I added the last verse on more recently. Now, this is interesting as a song because this has really been influenced by Ben on the arrangement. It was originally just a standard Albert King type blues in a minor key. Ben put all the lovely sort of swinging horns. I sort of think it's almost like a waltz. He tells me it's in 4/4 time, but it works really well. And I'm also pleased that I got to play a little bit of lead guitar on it.
Oh Lord, what does a poor boy have to do? Lord, oh Lord, what does this poor boy have to do? Feel so bad with ECU referendum. Corbyn was out, but now he says he thinks he's in.
Snowflake was inspired by, obviously, the insult that is thrown at people on the left of being a snowflake. In the 60s, people called the hippie generation, they called them freaks. It's a great way to empower yourself when you take on someone's insult and turn it around to your own advantage, which is what I tried to do with Snowflake, because, as it says in the poem, they're an incredible feature of nature. It also has an absolutely lovely backing, which I had the great idea of asking Mr. Ben Chambers to compose for me, and he's done a lovely job in getting a snowflake type feeling into the song, and I hope you enjoy it.
How, in the name of all that's icy, can snowflake be an insult? Individuality incarnate, isolation inviolate, crystalline collectivity. Let me relate the power of the snowflake.